I built this tool to help business owners who are constantly fighting and chasing a sales target, but yet at the same time struggling to make the money that they know that they deserve. There's often a gap between what we're chasing for sales for the business and what we're chasing for our personal money. And this gap can be highlighted with two simple sets of data that you can feed into this little tool. We're not saving this information onto our servers. We're not putting it away into any special files. It's just in your local browser. So if you feed this data in to fit your business and you get a bit lost, hit reset and start again, or just change the figures. So when you open this for the first time, you're going to have no data in here. I've just pre-populated this for you. And I've shown here that for this business owner to make £150,000 for themselves, that's after tax and after bills, the money that they can take home themselves, they need to turn over £1 million worth of sales. Now that's because of one key number, which I hope will make you think about your business. And that key number here is this margin. Because this margin, if I change this and I move this all the way to say 60%, I can virtually halve the sales target, achieve the same amount of profit. I didn't change any other number. I just changed that 1%. If you don't understand your gross profit percentage and your gross profit figure in your business, I would strongly urge you to go and do some research into that. Check with your accountant, your bookkeeper, look at your own data, analyze that figure. But essentially what it is, it's the sales figure less the cost to produce that sale. So it doesn't include your overheads, doesn't include loan repayments, doesn't include marketing costs. What it generally says is that I need to sell to this client and I need to provide some labor and maybe some subcontract and maybe some specific costs to deliver that job for that client. And it's those costs that are deducted from the sales figure to give you a gross profit. And then we convert that gross profit into a percentage. So here, I'm now suggesting that the gross profit percentage is 60%. In other words, 60% of 490 is 294, out of which I'm going to pay my marketing costs, my overheads, pay off my debts, save some money, pay my tax, and there'll be £150,000 left over for me and my family. That's how we calculate it. So if I change that percentage figure, it won't change the 150, it'll only change the sales figure up or down depending on that percentage. Now that in itself, it may be of use to you, but it'll be even more use to you if you now go and price up a job. Price up an individual job. So I'm going to bypass the strategy bridge for the moment. I'll come back to that in a second. And here I've got three types of project or jobs, and this is made up numbers. And I may have some small jobs, some medium jobs, and some large jobs. Now, you might have lots of jobs throughout the year of all different sizes and all different shapes because they're a little bit bespoke and all depend on what you're pricing up for your client. But I urge you to take a look at your data and see if you can categorize them into small, medium, or large, or local and international, or online and offline, or product-based or service-based. You will have some sort of categorization going on in your business. You'll be able to categorize them. Now, you might actually sit there and go, I can't get to 3, but I've got 4 or 5. Great. Add a row. And now you can have 6. And if you add a row again, we give you up to 9 job cards. So 9 categories. And it makes sense to keep it as simple as possible because one of these categories is going to have a bigger effect on the overall figures. Now, what we also got to do is we might have to dig into our data to see what last year's figures were. So I've provided a little place to put last year's figures, just as a little side note for yourself, so you don't have to keep looking them up. So pop in the last year's figures for each of the categories, and then pop in the price and the strategy for the new figures going forward. Now that strategy is going to be the sales price that you're going to sell it to your customer for, the cost it's going to cost you to deliver it, and the quantity. Now what I've done here is I've left the sales price the same and the cost price the same, but I've just messed around with the quantities at this stage. And below, it'll tell me how much my sales is going to generate for that particular category. Now, what we then do is we return up here to the strategy bridge. And we take the total of all our cards. That's why we don't really need any more than 9, because you'll start fighting with your own maths down there just to get to the totals. But we're going to say, actually, if I take those cards, they're all going to come to 490,000. My sales target is £490,000. Great. I've hit target. Great. But we're actually only going to earn 135,000, which means there's going to be a shortfall of £15,000. Where's that shortfall going to come from? Well, your pocket. You're not going to earn 150,000. There is a shortfall. Or, as a lot of business owners do, they'll still carry on taking the money they need, and they'll struggle to pay their tax bill. Or they won't save for a rainy day. Or they'll have to borrow more money. And then you get onto this slippery slope of continually feeling like you're going backwards. Well, I worked hard all year. Where's the money? Why am I going to borrow more money? Why can't I pay my tax bill? Well, because actually the gap between what you said your sales target was going to be and what you were going to price that very next job to that customer, somewhere along the line, there's a difference. A difference in pricing, a difference in margins, a difference in quantity. And with this particular example, you can see over here the margin of these jobs down here, despite the fact that you've got 60 for one of them and 55 and 50, the combined effect of that is 57. And we wanted 60. So that's 3% short. And that 3% shortage in your margin is leaving you £15,000 short in real cash. Think of it. 3% is costing you 15 grand in cash. That's a really decent holiday. That's a new bathroom, a new kitchen. That's money that can be spent for you and your family that you are going to go without because of that simple 3% reduction there. Now, if I just changed one number and instead of charging that figure at 20, I increased that price to 25. Straight away, I've now exceeded target by 30,000 and my margin is now 61%. I'm 9% above target. That's a price increase. And you might say, well, I'll put the price up, but I won't sell as many. Okay, let's assume that we now only sell 8 of them. We're still hitting target. I can sell 7 of them. How does that work? Okay, I've got a £2,000 shortfall. So I've actually reduced the number of items that I've sold, but I've increased the price, and I've now got my margins spot on. So the idea of this tool is for you to now go and play with it. Put your required living cost in at the top, build in these few figures that are essential to calculate your sales target, then go and compare it with the number of jobs that you have in some sort of category and play with the figures and see what it does to this little dashboard in the middle. If it helps you understand that you need to increase your prices or you need to cut your margins or you need to change your business model in any way, shape or form, then great, it's done its job. If you get stuck at any point in how this is supposed to operate, click here if you're stuck. There's a few little help screens there. Go play with it as often as you want to. And any questions, send us an email and I'll see if I can help you understand what all this means to you and your business. Speak soon.